Welcome to another live stream, my friends. Although Bitcoin has once again completely flatlined against resistance over an entire weekend, I would expect volatility to enter back into the market relatively soon since the weekly candle is closing very soon. My stance hasn't really changed since Friday's stream because nothing has really changed as far as structure goes. I'm still holding about 2/3 of that short position from last stream because nothing has changed in the structure since. We are still respecting resistance so far. This can change right now. We're starting to see some volatility kicking into the market. But so if we end up breaking out of this range, I'm open to the idea of testing the higher up 4-hour resistance once again. But so far, I would just rather still be a seller from resistance rather than FOMOing long into it. If we end up breaking out, I can always end up basically just looking for some sort of a retest after breaking through resistance and getting some sort of a pullback. But as it stands right now, if this fib setup does end up playing out, then my second target yet for this STUBER short setup that I entered would put Bitcoin's price back down at around 85.5 thousand US dollars for this 214 STUBER fib target. And guys, to be clear, that's not really a level I'm necessarily bullish at. That would be more so a take profit level for some short positions at the very least, just because as it's a buy level. Whether or not I'm entering a long position, I'm at least going to be buying out of some of my shorts if we end up getting there. And obviously that's if we end up hitting these targets down here. Like I said, on the 4-hour, there is actually some 4-hour resistance levels a little bit higher yet. Notice that this fib pull is from just very slightly higher because the one that I had on the 5-minute is actually pulled from this point right here. But as far as the 4-hour micro trend goes, this is where we had our last low with our lower low here. That means this would be the confirmed lower high, as that's the highest point between the two. So that resistance is actually slightly higher, but then it's more so if we end up breaking through that, we still have this red resistance box that I've had outlined for over a month now. That's basically 93 to 95,000 US dollars. Basically, at this point, although the bulls are looking decent on the shorter time frames like this, like I said, we're seeing a nice little bit of a pump here going towards the weekly close. But yeah, just basically, even if we break through this little 5-minute range here, the bulls just have so much work to do to prove that there's a possibility of ending up going back above 100K before the year end, basically. The weekly chart, I still have mixed feelings about the weekly chart, honestly, you guys. Part of me thinks that this is going to just turn into a bear flag and just end up nuking to the downside. But the other side of me thinks that even if we do end up pushing to new lows in the near future, I wouldn't be too surprised to see us get some sort of a bounce. Like I said, even 100K would be that 0.5 fib of this bigger range on the weekly chart. So to see us end up just bouncing around sideways for even a few months here would not be all too crazy, just like we did last cycle, basically. It would be very similar because we kind of bounced around for 2 or 3 months here. And we may end up seeing the same thing. And that would end up basically looking something like this. So obviously there's a lot of what ifs between now and then. That's just kind of something to watch for. So just don't get too married to the idea of needing to absolutely smash through support or smash through resistance, right? We don't need to drop to 60,000 US dollars. We don't need to drop to, even 80 or $70,000 anytime soon, just like we don't need to go straight back to all-time highs. We could absolutely just chop around sideways in some sort of a range, especially with holidays right now. It's, it's a little bit hard to predict how people will react. A lot of people may be starting to change their positions just due to taking profits for, the holiday season, for tax purposes. There's several different reasons that people could be, just kind of rebalancing their portfolios and stuff like that. So we'll have to see what kind of price action we get over the holidays. But again, so far, I just don't want to completely ignore this resistance, especially that I have already reduced my risk on this position by hitting my first take profit late last week. I'm willing to just hang on to the rest of this position for now because we haven't I was tempted to change the stop loss to break even, but I never did, just because, like I said, I took some risk off the table, and I'd rather end up hitting the second target before updating my stop loss. So we'll see what happens with that. I also still have that 20% of my position from 92,462 US dollars. Still have a small chunk of that short riding as well. And guys, let me know in the chat how you guys are feeling on the markets. If you guys appreciate these live streams and, just looking at the market with a level-headed approach at the structure levels rather than, on fundamentals and stuff like that, just really looking at the charts for what they are, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. And guys, if you do, for those of you who are interested in seeing more examples of how I'm looking at market structure, some of my trade setups, some of my favorite trade strategies, and so on, my partners at BloFin are currently running this promo for my followers. This has a couple days left. It's ending on December 23rd. But yeah, if you want to take advantage of that, be sure to scan the QR code on the screen and sign up to the no KYC exchange that I've personally been trading on for well over a year now. This will get you the current promo as well as future ones, plus access to the private Telegram group where I'm sharing a bunch of my signals and how I'm trading and that sort of thing. So if that interests you, you know what to do. But yeah, guys, let me know in the chat how you guys are doing. Let me know if you're in any interesting positions. If you have any strong feelings about where the market's going, whether you're extremely bullish, extremely bearish, let me know what your thoughts are on the market. Nice to see you guys here with me once again. For those of you guys here with me, thank you for being here with me. So many of you guys tuning in to every single stream, or at least most of them. Really appreciate you guys being here with me. Hope you guys are absolutely crushing it out there. I hope you are not getting chopped up. I hope you're loving the volatility in the market these days, because that's what we're focusing on in this channel, right? It's not just the hopium and, saying that the markets need to go one direction or the other, right? We're just looking at the charts for what they are and trading the volatility. And that's exactly why I love looking at very basic market structure and pulling Fibonacci's and just looking at ranges for what they are. And you guys know that, how my strategies work and how I look at fibs. I have my entries, I have my take profits, right? So I have my targets, I have my invalidations, so that I can play the range first and then hope for a breakout second on the rest of my position, basically. Because let's face it, the market loves chopping around sideways and just destroying people's emotional well-being by chopping around sideways. So that's why I love to play the range first, right? And that's why Fibonacci's and that sort of stuff just really help to keep things very structured and simplified. Keeping things very simple, less room for error, basically. As far as the rest of the market, you guys, like I say, like the thumbnail shows, that I expect volatility in the altcoin market as well. I've been talking about the Bitcoin dominance recently, the fact that we have this lower trending buy or sell signal on the MDX Trendmaster. That is the first one that we had in years. So if that is going to turn into a big reversal warning here, obviously it's having a hard time gaining momentum right now, but it is still the lower sell signal. We still have the blue line, even though we're trading above it. We still do technically have the sell signal. If that ends up pushing this down to the downside, that would be a big green light for altcoins, in my opinion, because then we would see that the focus is off the safer assets and diversifying into the higher risk assets out there. And there's so many altcoins, guys. Notice that I actually have alerts set on several altcoins right now. Inge, AVAX, Hype, these are all coins that look very similar right now. And it's something that I mentioned in my last stream. And I mentioned basically after our October, liquidation event, I guess we'll call it. But since that October 10th liquidation event, I was warning that it's very possible that that is a big warning shot of where the price of a lot of assets are going to trend to over the next little while. And so far, that's very much so what's happening. We see a lot of these altcoins just trending down towards the bottom of that wick. So if something that I would be interested in, so this is actually from a bullish perspective, but expecting us to possibly go a little lower here. But the setup that I would love to catch on these kinds of a thing would be if we end up coming down, testing this, triggering my alert so that it notifies me. My phone will notify me. But basically testing that level and holding it with just basically a wick below, or we just end up losing that level and reclaiming it, kind of a thing. I would love to end up getting into a long position on those sorts of altcoins. Just because the risk reward would be so large. Not saying that they would need to end up reversing with something like that, but if they do, the potential reward versus having the tight stop loss for invalidation on that kind of a setup could be wild. Like I said, Inge has this so far that it just looks like we're trending down towards this line. AVAX, we have the exact same type of market structure, right? We're still just basically pushing the 4-hour down towards that, filling the wick basically. And Hype looking very much the same. Hype actually got very close to filling this wick already, but hasn't quite. And, something else that I would look for basically if it was going to change early would be, let's say we get some sort of a bounce and at least end up breaking this, like actually confidently breaking a micro downtrend. Then it's possible we at least get some sort of a retest and then reversal type of a thing. But as it stands right now, I would rather get into one of those setups where it's actually testing the complete wick fill. I think there is potential for some very juicy plays in some altcoins if we get that kind of a setup. So that's why I have my alerts set up on those lines. And if we end up getting those, if I end up taking those positions, I will be notifying VIPs in the old Telegram channel, my friends. Another altcoin I wanted to check out is Ethereum, obviously. So this must have been a few streams ago. I don't even remember mapping this out, but obviously that's just a typical STUBER fib that I was mentioning, that if we end up, or the fact that we lost this little uptrend here, it was possible that we come and retest support of this range pulled from our local pivot basically. And notice we got that. I never did end up taking this trade. I lost tabs on it. I was not paying attention to it. I never had an alert set, but you can see that that idea did end up playing out, right? Just a typical STUBER fib setup where we come back down, retest the 786. That would have been the only entry I would have got, even if I did play it, because we obviously wouldn't have hit the other ones. But we would have got a nice entry at the 786, and we would already basically be at our first target right now. So that move has already started playing out. But again, just whether or not it's played out, and yes, this is a little bit of Captain Hindsight here, but nice to see that this type of structure just plays out time and time again. You see it so often in the charts, and how if you actually wait for those pullbacks that you can get yourself into significantly safer trades. And just with nice, easy, predictable targets and that sort of thing. So love to see it playing out so often like that. That's the thing. Even though the price action, a lot of people don't like the price action because we've been trending to the downside the last couple of months. But in reality, these charts have been moving very predictably, very rationally. We just see resistance dumping the price like resistance should do. We're just seeing the charts basically act in a very healthy way, respecting basic price action, very basic market structure. So I love to see it. As traders, such as ourselves, we should love the fact that it doesn't matter which direction the market's moving, but the fact that it's moving and respecting levels. I absolutely love to see this recently. Solana. So Solana actually has recently set a lower low on the trend, because we had our low here. We set this lower low. That means we have our confirmed lower high at approximately 147 US dollars. So even if Solana gets some sort of a bounce right now, I would start to consider resistance basically at $140 up to $152 would be potential resistance for me, just because of this structure that formed here in the charts. Bitcoin, yes, still respecting this resistance, but it doesn't look too bad. The fact that we are at least holding it, but again, just the fact that we haven't broken resistance, there's just no reason to celebrate at this point. What I would rather wait for to get bullish would be basically breaking through resistance and seeing a big pullback and getting along from support, or just seeing a nice confirmed breakout followed by market structure setting higher highs and then getting into longs on the higher lows. Looking to long, right? Like if we set a higher high, for example, then I'd be looking for those pullbacks. Then if we end up setting another higher high here, for example, very theoretical, obviously, but then looking for those pullbacks again. So if we do break out bullishly, that's totally fine. I'll just have to adjust the way that the direction I'm trading from there, basically. But still using Fibonacci is the same, using the same type of market structure, just from the other side, of the coin. What is my strategy for spot holdings? When is it time for me to exit in spot? Honestly, I treat my spot very different than I treat my trading fund. I will randomly take profits from my spot. If like quite a while back, I was taking a little bit of profits at 110K and at 120K, but from there, I don't really care about getting out of all my positions, because basically, in fact, I'm actually, while I'm shorting the market and taking profits on my shorting, while I'm shorting with my trading account, I have been dollar cost averaging into some things on these swings. So I treat my spot and my leverage accounts very different. I don't really care if I miss moves with my spot account all that much, if that makes sense. But another way to do it is, for example, when I end up hitting my 4-hour resistance levels, if you were more concerned with trading your spot, if you're hitting your 4-hour resistance levels, you can always end up selling some of your spot. And then just like if you were trading with leverage, you'd have an invalidation. So you can actually set a trigger order that if where your short stop loss would have been, if that would have got invalidated, you want to buy back into your spot, you can set a trigger order that way. I have done that as well. If I'm looking at taking profits, and I'll keep it in stables for a little while and just have a trigger order so that if I'm wrong about that being the top, I can always buy back in. And yeah, you would have a little bit less, and you would just consider that a small loss of a trade, basically. Just a way of looking at trading spot rather than leverage all the time. Anyways, guys, what is the Trendmaster saying on the 4-hour? I assume we still have resistance just above us. Yeah, still at around 89.8K, a little bit of resistance on that indicator still. Liquidations. We have liquidity to both sides of us right now. And even the high leverage stuff, these brown, yellow bars, that's the high leverage stuff. And we do have some above us. We have some below us. So honestly, as far as liquidity goes, looking at things from a market maker's perspective, there's at least liquidity both directions. So again, a little bit of mixed signals. I could really see either scenario happen, and that's why we got to be ready for anything. But at this point, I'm still favoring the downside just because we've had such an obvious downtrend the last couple months. But I'm open to the idea of it reversing. I mean, if the bulls end up, proving my bearish theories wrong and we smash through that 95K resistance, at that point, I am totally open to the idea of playing the trend to the upside for a little while. But yeah, I think altcoins will be interesting if Bitcoin does make a decent move, if Bitcoin does start breaking structure to the upside on the 4-hour. And if Bitcoin dominance can end up dropping off a cliff, that could be a big green light for altcoins, especially if they end up basically bouncing off some of these big wick fills. There could be some interesting plays there, you guys. Anyways, my friends, I think that's about all I really wanted to go over this evening. I just really wanted to bring you guys a bit of a live stream showing some of the levels that I'm watching and that sort of thing. Just being that I'm expecting volatility to pick up really any minute. Usually when we get close to the weekly candle close, we see volatility kick in, but we're still just hugging this resistance level for now. So we're just going to have to see what happens. But if you did appreciate this live stream, please do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And just a reminder for those of you who are interested in learning and seeing more examples of my favorite trade strategies, how I use Fibonacci's and market structure, and just give more of my thoughts on the market in general, do yourselves a favor and get into my Telegram by scanning the QR code on the screen or clicking the link in the description down below. And as I mentioned, my partners at BloFin currently still running this promo for you guys for just a couple more days here. So if that is something that interests you, you know what to do. Get in the Telegram. Take advantage of this, a 2-for-1. And with that, my friends, thank you so much for being here, watching with me once again. I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Peace.